Okay, hello everybody. We are here on week 6. So this is the peer review week. So I'm going to go over basically the two main assignments that you have for this week, the peer review and the journal. It probably will be a shorter video just because more time I devote to going over people's essays and writing feedback and suggestions and all of that. So I try to get those to you as soon as I can. You will have basically next week is like revision week. So this week you really are just you're trying to just focus on doing the peer review and also this reflective type journal thing. Let me start just with the journal thing. All right, so the week 6 assignment is you're writing basically 2 paragraphs, okay? And they're similar, but one of them, let me go down here. So one of them, you're trying to basically assess your strengths and weaknesses in each of these areas, okay? So how did it go for you, or how do you feel about, like, is your introduction really strong? Is your thesis statement together? Do you understand what it is, or could you use help with that? So finding and addressing opposing viewpoints. So if you had trouble with that, that could have been one of the things you struggled with, but then you found you were successful, finding a couple of them or so. And you're trying to also be as specific as you can to your essay, right? So I was trying to look for this viewpoint that said this, but I ended up finding a viewpoint that says this other thing. So you want to make sure that you're not just talking in generalities, but that you're talking about your actual writing that you did. But you're evaluating yourself, deciding what your strengths and weaknesses are on these 5 elements. Introduction thesis, addressing the opposing view, constructing solid paragraphs. I have a cohesive argument overall. So that sort of means your 3 main arguments are sort of supporting your big argument. And then your solid conclusion. That leaves an impression. Obviously, you just wrote a rough draft, right? So none of them are supposed to be perfect. So all you're doing in this, you're writing a paragraph talking about what you did really well and what you struggled with the most. And you're basically just going through these 5 main parts of writing an essay. Then your second full paragraph, you'll notice, has the same elements, but what you're trying to do is you're going to explain or try to discuss your plans for strengthening each of these areas, right? So what can you do? And you want to be more, again, specific is key, right? Instead of like, I want my introduction to be my hook at the very beginning to be more interesting. You want to then maybe say what you will do for that, right? Like you're trying to come up with a plan. Like maybe I can find a story or an anecdote about the subject that can help me introduce the subject or my argument. So you're trying to actually think of things that you can do, that you can plan to do to strengthen your essay when you're revising it next week. Finding and addressing opposing viewpoints, right? You could think like one way to strengthen this would be to find some research evidence that could help me refute the other side. Maybe right now you just sort of refute it using logic, but it would be even better if you could find numbers or information statistics that would help you refute something that the other side might say, right? So you really have to try to think about what it is that you can improve on. Let me step in here for a minute for the constructing good. So here's what you want to have for your solid paragraphs. So your topic sentences, you want them to sort of be like argument statements, right? They're presenting a position, And I often encourage people to use the word because, since that helps you write a complete argument statement. Instead of we need to replace lead pipes in schools, that's just half the argument. We need to replace lead pipes in schools because that's, the children are the ones who are most affected by lead or something. So anyway, so that's when you have looking at your paragraphs, you're looking at your topic sentences. You're looking at your supporting statements, meaning like there will be usually another sentence that sort of elaborates on and explains your topic sentence. And then you're looking at probably using some sort of information or quote from one of your sources. And by that, I mean you set up and then you present and then you follow up your evidence that you're giving, whether it's a quote from something or statistics. I always think that if it's numbers or, numbers, it's best to use paraphrasing. So you still have to put the citation after it, right? In parentheses. Well, it depends how you do it, but it's parentheses, the year, the last name and the year. As long as the last name if you use the last name in the actual writing, you just put the last name, then you put the year right after their name in parentheses, and then you keep on with the sentence. That's APA. Anyway, in any event, this is the good full paragraphs of argument, right? You have a topic sentence that's sort of taking a position or stating some sort of version of an argument. You have a sentence that's sort of elaborating on that, describing it. Then you have probably another sentence that's leading up to whatever you're going to provide. As far as evidence goes, you give some evidence, and then you want a follow-up sentence that explains what the evidence is. Because in general, readers are lazy and dumb. That's just true. I happen to be one, so I know it to be true. What that means is, in order to have like a flow, in order to write really well, you want your reader to never have to stop and think and remember something, right? You never, like the thing you mentioned a couple sentences ago or whatever. So you're always just trying to give them as much information as possible. So even after you use a quote or give information and you think that explains itself, it doesn't. You need a sentence after that to explain the meaning of whatever you've just presented, right? It basically telling them how to think about it, and then that's it. Okay, and then you have creating a cohesive argument overall. That has much to do with basically having 3 supporting ideas that you're developing that all sort of support your main overall argument. And then the conclusion, right, where you sort of wrap it up, but that means you're sort of going over what you've presented. I like the idea of thinking about a lawyer's final argument, like a final argument in court. They don't just say, okay, we're done. They sort of mention what they've presented. Like, so we showed you this, this is another thing we showed you, and that way, and then they sort of end trying to leave an impression. So that's sort of a useful way, I think, to think about your conclusion. Again, I'm going to also be looking at all of these things in your essay and making comments on them, right? So you'll have that, and then you'll also have the peer review. All right, I'm going to stop here and then with the journal entry, and then I will start with the peer review.